Stocks on Wall Street closed the session mixed. The S&P 500 hits a record high, aided by gains in tech names, while the Dow Jones closes 400 points lower ahead of Fed's interest rate decision later today. Asian markets open mostly higher after S&P 500 hits record high. South Korea's Kospi pushes fresh highs. The GIFT Nifty is indicating a higher start for the Indian market. Crude prices rise 2% as a severe U.S. winter storm disrupts crude production and refinery operations. The gold scales record peak as geopolitical uncertainty fuels safe haven bids. The key earnings for today, Maruti is set to report a healthy set of numbers, while L&T revenue is expected to rise 14%. Also, watch out for numbers from BEL as well as SBI Life. Budget preparations enter the final phase with the Halwa ceremony held at the North Block in New Delhi yesterday. The budget session of the Parliament also begins today, which will formally open with President Draupadi Murmu addressing a joint sitting of both the houses. Hello, good morning. You've tuned into CNBC TV 18. You're watching Power Breakfast with me, Vinny Motiwala. In terms of the markets, what we have from the US markets, a bit of a mixed session, but Asian markets, let's look at how they have opened up in the trading session today. Most of them have opened up on the green side. So whether you look at the Taiwan index, the Hang Seng, the Kospi, that's the South Korean index, all of them are managing to hold on to gains. Now, what's not holding on to gains or is muted is the ASX 200, that's the Australian index, that's down almost 0.2%. Nikkei, that's down 5/10 to 0.6%. So the Japanese index is seeing some bit of a pressure. So bit of a mixed opening is what the Asian markets have seen, but Indian markets, we're again hoping for a positive start today. Nifty implied open is indicating a 26-point uptick as of now for the Indian market. So we'll watch out for where this is headed in terms of the session now. And as of now, a bit of a positive start, a mild positive start for the Indian markets. But that's the setup in terms of the Asian markets. How is all this going to be impacting our Indian markets? What are the important cues that you should be keeping an eye out on, important stocks to watch out for in the trading session? We have a team of research joining in with us as well. But first up, I'm going to take you all through the market setup for today. What are the important cues from the domestic front that we are keeping an eye out on? Now, do not forget, yesterday, the market did see a recovery coming in. It was a bit of a volatile session that we saw, but we did see a recovery there. Nifty managed to close at the 25,150 levels. Nifty Bank, that saw an outperformance coming in as well. A lot of bank earnings that came in. So yes, we had Sensex, Nifty Bank, all of them managing to close on with some gains. But what came in from the FII front? FIIs continued to be sellers. 3,000 approximately crores of sell coming in from FIIs, while DIIs were buyers of 9,000 crores. So that trend, something has continued. Now, today, in terms of important events or cues that we're keeping an eye out on, we have the listing of Shadowfax Technologies. It was a bit of a muted, show that they got in so far. So let's wait out for the listing that will come in today as well. Maybe a muted show is what we could see, but key to watch out for in terms of listing. Now, important earnings today. We have L&T that will be reporting its numbers from the infra side. So we'll watch out for that. We have Maruti, ACC. Then we do have defense side, some of the names like BEL, GRSE, Cochin Shipyard, those shipbuilder names. GE Vernova TND on the cap goods space will be reporting numbers expected to do well versus other peers. M&M Financials, SBI Cards, TVS Motors, among some of the names that we are keeping an eye out on in terms of earnings. Also, do not forget, obviously, we'll have the India's December industrial production data that will come in on the macro front. We have the budget session that starts today in the Parliament. So key to watch out for that. Obviously, budget is on 1st of Feb this Sunday. So more updates we'll watch out for there. Yesterday, obviously, we had that conclusion of the India-EU FTA. Important update there. Key in terms of today's trading session will continue to be that as well. And obviously, there's going to be a press conference today by Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal, who will be addressing the press on this EU-India FTA as well. So key updates there is something that we'll keep an eye out on. But what is it that we're keeping an eye out on in the world of F&O? That's what we'll go across to Mangalam to get that update. Mangalam, yesterday you had highlighted in the morning itself that, maybe a volatile but range-bound session, and that's what it seemed like. Though we ended at the day's high, today what are we keeping an eye out on?
Well, today it is the start of a new series, so we call it Hello February. February in the past has, seen big moves, mostly on the downside, but when it moves up, it moves big. FY24, Feb 2024, it was a near 630 point up move that we saw. Feb 2021, it was a 1300 point up move that we saw. But by and large, we've seen about 2 to 3% sort of down moves in February. But after a big gash that we saw in January, where the Nifty lost about 763 points, the question is whether we see some positive moves in February or not. The rollovers, the Jan-Feb rollovers have been at around 71% versus an average of 72%. Mildly below. That's because some of the shorts have, ended their position and longs have carried some of their positions going forward. So that's the trend on the rollovers. FII long exposure at the start of February series is 12%. It's not terribly short, but obviously it is not, extremely long either. The start of Jan series, the FIIs were 9% long. The start of Feb series, they're 12% long. And over the last 6 or 7 series, they've been between this 8 to 20% sort of long exposure, and that seems to have become a bit of a norm. The FII net exposure is 1.75 lakh contracts on the short side. The clients, they are long. So over the last many months that the FIIs are shorts, it's the clients, which are the HNIs, etc., they are long. Their net contracts a little over 1.2 lakh and long exposure at 72.5% as well. The important part, February series is laced with a lot of triggers. So if one of those plays out in favor of the bulls or more of them, then there will be a massive wave of short covering, and we can expect the big move that we saw in Feb 2021 or Feb 2024 on the way up. Why do I say that? Because you have the union budget, you have the RBI policy, remainder of the third quarter earnings, and any sort of update coming in on the trade deal between India and US. Now that India and EU are done, any update on India and US will be a very, very big positive. So 3 out of the 4 important triggers for the market, mostly likely to be positive. So that, with the FII short positioning, indicates that maybe Feb, the market could be in for a bit of a boom.
Okay, we'll keep an eye out on that. Thanks so much for that, Mangalam. But let's move on to Ria, who is here to tell us which are the important stocks that we should be keeping on our radar. Good morning, Ria.
Well, good morning. Let's start off with Marico first, which has reported its quarter 3 numbers. Quite a good set coming in here. The revenue has come in at 3,537 crores, which is above the estimates that we were working with. Domestic volume growth has also come in at 8% versus estimates of 7 to 8% growth. So good set for Marico. For Vodafone Idea, the loss has come in this time around at 5,286 crores, slightly narrowing compared to quarter 2 of this year. Revenue has been largely stable, going up just around 1%, and ARPU has come in at 186 crores versus 173 crores compared on a year-on-year basis. For Metro Brands, the net profit has seen an increase of roughly 35% on a year-on-year basis, boosted by lower tax expenses largely. And the revenue has also seen an increase of roughly 15.5% for this one. For Motilal Oswal Financial Services, the net profit has been stable at 566 odd crores this time around. Revenue has seen an increase of 6% on a year-on-year basis, largely led by the wealth and the asset management business of the company. For Vishal Megamart, for quarter 3 of this year, the revenue has seen an increase of roughly 17%. The adjusted same-store sales growth has stood at 9.6% in this quarter, and the festive season shift has led to the lower reported growth this time around for the company. Next up, Vedanta will also be in focus today. They are going to offload 6.7 crore shares in Hindustan Zinc, which will be worth roughly 4,590 crores. The floor price for this deal has been set at 685 rupees per share, and the OFS will open between the 28th to 29th of Jan.
Ria, thank you so much for the update there. We'll keep an eye out on all those stocks in the trading session. On that note, we're going to slip into a very short break. After the break, we'll get to the key developments from the White House in a special segment, Trump Watch. Stay tuned in. Welcome back to Power Breakfast on CNBC TV 18. And in the US markets, what we saw was that Wall Street ended mixed on a Tuesday. The S&P 500, that touched a new intraday high, driven by the strength that we saw coming in for big tech names, while investors looked ahead for key earnings as well as the Federal Reserve's first interest rate decision of the year that is due tonight. Now, the Nasdaq also climbed almost 1%, while the Dow Jones underperformed to end 400 points lower in the red. Now, we have CNBC's Seema Modi, who's joining us to give us a wrap on what happened on Wall Street.
U.S. markets were mixed across the major indexes in Tuesday trade, with the Dow falling sharply and the S&P hitting a new all-time high. The Dow losing 409 points, the S&P 500 adding 28, and the tech-heavy Nasdaq gaining 216. While tech giants boosted the Nasdaq and the S&P, shares of major health insurers were sharply lower Tuesday. The Dow falling almost 1% Tuesday after the Trump administration proposed keeping steady the rates that Medicare pays insurers. The administration proposed an increase of 0.09%, far below the 4 to 6% increase that Wall Street anticipated. United Health and Humana falling about 20% in today's trade, while CVS Health saw its shares decline by 14%. TikTok settling with a plaintiff Tuesday and will no longer be part of a high-profile trial over social media. Snapchat's parent company reached a similar settlement last week. The trial will now continue against Meta Platforms and Alphabet's YouTube. It's the first of several legal cases against social media platforms. This case involves allegations that the way social media and streaming video apps are designed has harmed mental health of young people and left them addicted to the services. Both companies deny the allegations. That's what's happening here in the U.S. Back over to you in Mumbai.
Thank you so much for that. Now, all eyes obviously on the Federal Reserve decision that's tonight, and a CNBC survey suggests no rate cut this time around, but predicts 2 cuts this year. CNBC's Steve Leisman is joining us with the findings of the CNBC Fed survey.
Carl, yeah, the Fed expected to keep rates unchanged today and not cut until June. Just 2 cuts priced into this year. That may reflect a better outlook for growth. Still, only modest gains are forecast by respondents for the stock market this year. With yesterday's close at 69.50, it's seeing up to 72.50, a 4% gain, and then just another, or a total of 10% by the end of 2027 to 76.53. 73% of our 36 respondents say stocks are overpriced in some way or another. Looking at the economic backdrop this year, you can see some pretty good strength from the consumers. It says 30% believe the consumer will be stronger this year, 42% about the same. That's good news because the consumer was stronger last year. But a big change in business investment, probably linked to the tax bill. 68% say stronger business investment, with 15% saying it's about the same. Another plus out there behind the U.S. basically, majority of tariffs say. Majority say the tariff impact is behind the U.S. 28% say it's ahead of it, and 14% don't know. The impact would be a 0.3 percentage point change in the consumer price index. Still, tariffs are seen having a negative economic effect. 71% say it's bad for growth. 88% say it will lower retail margins. 68% say it's bad for employment. And 80% say it means higher inflation. Uncertainty around the administration policies is the number one risk out there. The AI bubble, Trump, the president's efforts to limit the Fed's independence, continued high inflation, and tariffs round out the list of the biggest risks to the economy. Douglas Gordon from Russell Investments sums it all up, all these tensions out there, saying there's certainly no shortage of potential exogenous risk sources to capital markets. This comes, however, against a backdrop of seemingly waning tariff impact, good enough labor data, elevated but not worrisome inflation, and perhaps most importantly, still robust earnings. So the outlook for monetary policy and the economy looks like it's going to hinge on this tension between positive aspects of the tax bill versus potential drag from tariffs, and whether there's still more in the way of tariffs to come, guys.
Okay, now here's some insights from former Fed officials Loretta Masters as well as Richard Fisher on the Federal Reserve and its upcoming decision.
Yeah, for sure, the Fed's going to stand pat. There's no rationale for doing another cut. You know, they've cut 75 basis points. They took out the insurance on the softness in the labor market. Now's a good time to watch and wait. Inflation's still elevated. And, you know, there's no urgency to do one thing or another. So standing pat now just makes a lot of sense to me.
I think they'll be non-committal. They'll leave the door open. Again, we still have to, I thought Walter did a good job, Walter Isaacson just now, in pointing out a sort of evaporating sense of confidence in the Labor Department data, see? And I think they're going to just wait and see. There's no need, if the economy's doing as well as the Trump administration said it's doing, then I don't think there's any need to proceed, and particularly if inflation won't come down below 2.8 or almost under 3%. So I think they'll just hold it easy, and leave the door open for something in the future.
Now, getting you the latest on Trump-related developments, President Trump believes that the dollar has not excessively weakened, and in fact, the weakness is a good thing. Trump went on to add that he would like the currency to seek its own levels, which would be a fair thing to do, but also hinted that he could manipulate the currency the way he liked it. He quoting him, "I could have it go up or down like a yo-yo," he said, and listen in to furthermore on his comments.
With the current value of the dollar, do you think it's declined too much?
No, I think it's great. I mean, the value of the dollar, look at the business we're doing. No, dollar's doing great.
You want to see it decline?
You know, it's very interesting. If you look at China and Japan, I used to fight like hell with them because they always wanted to devalue their yen. You know that? The yen and the yuan. And they'd always want to devalue it. They devalue. And I said, not fair that you devalue because it's hard to compete when they devalue. But they always fought, no, our dollar's very good.
Now, moving on, as the White House awaits a Supreme Court decision on its tariff policies, Trump at an event in Iowa signaled that he would forge ahead with a campaign of heavy import taxes regardless of the ruling. One way or another, we are going to do it, is what he said. If we have to do it a different way, he will do it. Also, at the same event, he reiterated that he will select a new Fed chair for the U.S. Central Bank very soon. And he said that once they have a great Fed chairman, which he will announce pretty soon, U.S. will see rate cuts come down, and so rates will move down further as well. Moving on, President Donald Trump warned Iraq's largest political bloc against tapping the former prime minister to return to office, saying that the U.S. would no longer help the nation if he was back in power. Lastly, we have Syrian President Assad, who spoke with U.S. President Donald Trump over the phone, according to Bloomberg. Now, what Bloomberg also said that Trump welcomed the ceasefire agreement in Syria and stated that the U.S. is ready to back reconstruction efforts there in Syria. The leaders also discussed the transition phase in Syria as well. Now, that's all we have in today's edition of Trump Watch. Up next, we're going to come back with more in terms of commodities. Stay tuned in for that, but a short break right now. Welcome back to Power Breakfast on CNBC TV 18. Let's go across now to Manisha Gupta, who's here to tell us what are the key updates in the world of commodities this morning. Good morning, Manisha.
Morning, and thank you for that. Well, I'll start with gold right now because we are trading at a record highs yet again. Overnight has been a 3% gain, and after that, gold has hit a record high at around $5,180 an ounce. But we have seen a gain 20% in this year. Also in the markets, you also have crude prices, which gained 2%. It's trading at a 15-week highs. The kind of severe winter storm that we've seen in U.S. and Canada has led the prices on the higher side. What hasn't done so well in the overnight markets has been copper. That has declined 2%, and that is because you have seen rising inventories in China, in U.S., and LME as well, and that is weighing onto the markets.
Okay, Manisha, thank you so much for that. Surely we'll keep an eye out on the metal space, gold, copper, all of that on our radar. But let's move on. And L&T, that's set to report its Q3 earnings today. We have Vivek joining in with us with the expectations from L&T. Good morning, Vivek.
Well, good morning. India's largest capital goods and infra company will deliver its Q3 results today. It's expected to be a steady operational quarter, but there will be a lot of questions that we will be asking the management in the media call that they will host today evening. Revenue seen higher by close to 14% on a year-on-year basis. EBITDA seen higher by a little over 17%. Margins seen expanding marginally on a year-on-year as well as on a sequential basis, and profitability seen higher by 30%. Now, what does BofA Securities say in terms of the expectations? They say that order announcements in the third quarter so far, at least the ones that the company has announced to the exchanges, have been slightly soft. They're saying total disclosures are a little over 35,000 crore. They expect the ex-services order inflow higher by 11% on a year-on-year basis. Let's do a quick guidance check as far as L&T is concerned. The company had given guidance at the start of the year. So when you're looking at the top line of the revenues, they mentioned they expect to see close to 15% growth. At the end of H1, they were at 13% growth, and the management said that they are on track to meet the guidance. In terms of the core margins at the start of the year, given a guidance of close to 8.5%, 7.7% currently, they said margin expansion is still a work in progress. And as far as the order inflow guidance is concerned, they had given a 10% order inflow guidance. So at the end of H1, tracking very strong 39%. Most likely, L&T could go ahead and exceed the order inflow guidance. Two key questions that we will be asking the management. Number one, in terms of the Middle East, whether there are any order inflow worries, especially as far as the Kuwait orders are concerned. And lastly, whether any tweaking the guidance is concerned.
Okay, Vivek, thank you so much for that. Important to watch out for L&T's numbers today. But let's move on budget session. That's going to be a start today with President's address to the joint sitting of both the houses. Meanwhile, the government has listed 9 pending bills, including insolvency and bankruptcy code. The government will table the union budget on 1st of February, which is Sunday. The government convened an all-party meeting last evening to discuss ways to ensure smooth functioning of the two houses. Opposition parties questioned the government for not sharing the legislative agenda for the session. Parliamentary Affairs Minister Rijiju said that agenda would be shared later. The first phase of the budget session kicks off tomorrow. Okay, with that, we're absolutely out of time on this edition of Power Breakfast. Thank you so much for tuning in. Up next, your Bazaar Morning Call.